Hi, everybody. This is David Roach talking to you from freezing north of Europe, wrapped up against the elements. Let's start with the key question, above all key questions. Who's going to win the US election? Well, the swing states aren't telling us anything, and they won't. I think they were the variables that mattered in previous elections, but they're not going to matter this time. There's no statistical relevance of any sort coming out of what they present. What will matter will be gender, how many people of each gender turn out. And I think Kamala Harris has a lot of support among women who didn't vote for. And I think it's all about whether people who didn't vote at previous elections because they felt that there was no possibility of change, or the political system was corrupted against them, I think they will turn out. At the margin, I think this favors Kamala Harris. To my mind, and my mind is that of an intelligence operator looking at the details, I think Trump's campaign is tired. I can't see him saying anything which either shocks me because his extremism always shocks me and his mendacity always shocks me, but they're not going to bring anybody new on board because people have heard it all before. But I think the touch of humanity that you get out of KH is different. And I think it is that marginal difference, which could mean that on the day, her margin is much bigger. Now, let me also say, I don't think she'll fix all the structural issues that need to be fixed in the US economy: productivity, education, budget deficits, etc. Her economic program is not cloud cuckoo land. It's not the sort of thing where cartoon-like figures fall over a cliff, but neither do they actually contain the sort of policies that would address the major issues in front of the United States. But on the day, let us suppose, and I'm only saying suppose, it's really a question mark that I'm putting to you all, that Kamala Harris wins the election. I think it'll be seen as continuity, not as a vote for disastrous economics, even though I don't think those economics are any good. Whereas I think if Trump wins, there is a likelihood that the course of his economic policies in terms of tariffs affecting global inflation, US inflation and growth, and in terms of tearing up alliances that were like NATO, like the alliances in the Far East, in the Pacific Basin, which were and are the most efficient and cheapest way of protecting the US's global position. I think the economic costs of those will be immense, and they will be felt very quickly. So I would expect markets to fall. That's enough for me about elections. And I'm not on one side or the other. I'm just looking at what I see as data and facts, or a lack of data and facts, and saying which way I think it points. End of issue. Or perhaps beginning of the issue, but nevertheless, let us pass on. The second thing that happened last week was China threw some more money at the property sector. I don't think this will work because you're using cyclical tools to try and address structural issues. That never works. The reality is that China faces very poor demographics, falling productivity of both capital and of labor. It faces the impossibility of grabbing greater market share in international markets. It is quite odd to see that China, on the one hand, seems to want to act like the Committee of Nations and sell us all what it produces in great surplus, while on the other hand, doing an exercise to show its ability and readiness to set up a blockade around Taiwan. In my view, the world of geopolitics has changed in that you can go for one option, the Committee of Nations, or the other, a belligerent force trying to bring down democracy globally, but not both at the same time. So China can't grow that way anymore. Export surpluses garnering ever increasing share of market trade, global trade, ever-increasing share of global trade. That is not going to happen. Now, the most immediate crisis on hand is, of course, the Middle East. I'll put it bluntly. If Israel, in its reciprocal attack on Iran, goes for economic assets like oil, Iran will try and close Straits of Hormuz, and oil will be above 160 a barrel. And the economic cost of that, of course, affects markets enormously. If Israel goes for the nuclear assets, then we're into a whole new ballgame, which will involve Russia not letting a key arms supplier and ally in the Middle East go under. And secondly, of course, it creates an opportunity for China when the US is occupied with a very turbulent Middle East. It might possibly, though I personally think not yet, be the moment that that President Xi would say, well, the US is in no position to really defend Taiwan at the moment. Let's try our hand at a blockade of Kaohsiung, or one of the key ports. So I think the neutrality of markets will depend upon Israel targeting purely military assets in its retribution attack against Iran. If it goes beyond that, then geopolitics will have crossed the line into the area of economic cost and market concern, which will make it very relevant to investors very quickly. Now, I will put down as a last marker, I consider it completely unavoidable that Israel will take out Iranian nuclear assets within 12 months. There is no way that anybody sensible, actually, but Israel to the fore, that Israel can ever live with a nuclear bomb in the hands of the mullahs. That is just not going to happen. So you can choose your date for the ultimate war, but it's going to happen. And it will be the day upon which the global bear market begins. Because on that day, geopolitics, by taking on nuclear assets, opens the door to the great powers on both sides becoming much more involved in what is ultimately a war about nuclear assets, not necessarily using nuclear assets, but having them on both sides of the divide between the alliance of the autocracies like China and Russia and that lovely place, North Korea, and the defenders of democracy as not being an old tree rotten to the core, ready to topple over on the winds emanating from the new way of doing things, which is available to all and sundry free of charge from the autocratic states in Beijing and in Russia. And if you really want to go the whole hog, North Korea, Pyongyang too. Okay, have a good week and think about this. And thanks for watching.